Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was sitting in the kitchen helping Owen glue a Lego spaceship wing back together when I got the invitation in the mail. Real thick envelope. My name spelled right for once. Return address was my mom's house in Arvada. Inside, a wedding invitation. My younger brother Brandon was getting married. Now I hadn't heard from him in almost a year. Not since Christmas, when Diane, my mother, told me it was family only and didn't invite us. But here was this shiny gold-trimmed card asking me to come celebrate his big day with Claire, the golden girl. Blonde, dental hygienist smile, works in finance. Probably never bought anything off a clearance rack in her life. Claire was the kind of woman Diane always shoved in my face. She's what you could have had, Nathan, if you hadn't made such poor choices. Meaning Owen's mom, who dipped when he was 2. I'm 36, name's Nate, single dad. Owen's 7 now, and he was pumped when he saw the invite. Does this mean Uncle Brandon wants us there? Like, with everybody? I told him yeah. I even let myself believe it might mean things were changing. Maybe we were being let back in. That lasted about 3 minutes, until I called Diane. So, I said, we got the invite. Wasn't expecting that. She let out a little hum, then said, it was Claire's idea. She thought it would be classy. Should I RSVP for the 2 of us? She took a beat too long before answering. Sure, just, don't expect a big fuss. You're not part of the wedding party, obviously. Obviously. Quick note, before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're watching from. Let's see how many corners of the world we've got here today. And let's continue. I bought Owen a suit from a clearance rack at Kohl's. Navy blue, slightly big on him. But he loved it. Said he looked like a businessman astronaut. I rented a blazer for myself. First time I'd worn dress shoes in maybe 4 years. I told myself we'd go, be polite, stay in the background. Maybe this was a handshake. Quiet, maybe a little fake, but still something. Claire was the type of woman Diane always wished I'd chased. Claire was someone you posted on Facebook. Her nails matched her clutch. She probably knew what flatware went with salmon. But none of that mattered to Owen. We'll sit with everybody? He asked. Maybe, I said. Will they clap when we walk in? I smiled. I doubt it, buddy. Still, he kept grinning. And I let him. We packed a bag and booked a cheap motel room near the venue in Parker. I got him new socks and a clip-on tie. I even ironed my shirt, with a towel and a hotel iron that smelled like burnt toast. Driving over that morning, Owen was in the back seat, practicing how to say, "Congratulations on your wedding," like he'd been cast in a school play. I pulled into the lot, looked at all the clean cars and the valet guys with earpieces and thought, just smile. Keep your head down. Make this easy. We got out. Owen adjusted his tie and grabbed my hand. You ready? I asked. He nodded fast. Are you? I wasn't, but I said yeah. And we walked in. We walked into the reception hall, and it hit me like a punch. The smell of white roses, wine, and perfume you knew cost more than my entire paycheck. The place looked like it had been ripped out of one of those wedding shows Owen's mom used to watch. High ceilings, rustic beams, huge windows overlooking hills covered in grapevines. Candlelight flickered off crystal glasses and gold flatware. Everything screamed money. Owen squeezed my hand tighter, his eyes locked on the chandelier overhead, glass orbs hanging like frozen fireworks. Looks like a spaceship, he whispered. I nodded. Fancy spaceship? We took a few steps in. People were still finding their seats, mingling. A string quartet played something that sounded like it belonged in a toothpaste commercial. Claire was standing near the head table, all lace and shine, laughing at something one of her bridesmaids said. She looked like a damn Pinterest board with skin, not a strand of hair out of place. She turned, saw us, and her face stiffened for half a second, before she forced a smile and gave me the tightest nod I've ever seen on a human. Before I could react, Owen let go of my hand and walked right up to her. You look like a princess, he said, dead serious. Claire blinked, surprised. Well, thank you. That was it. She turned her back. Owen came back to me, grinning like he'd just met a celebrity. A minute later, Brandon walked over. Tuck sharp, posture rigid, eyes doing this weird thing, like he wanted to look at me but couldn't quite get there. He went straight for Owen. "Hey, little man, you clean up good," he said, giving him a one-armed hug. Owen beamed. "Thanks." Brandon stood up, nodded once in my direction, eyes somewhere over my shoulder, then walked away. No hug, no good to see you, nothing. I didn't even have time to feel awkward before one of the ushers came over. Young guy with a clipboard. "Name?" he asked. "Nathan. With my son, Owen." He scanned the chart, then pointed. "You're at table 14, right this way." We followed him past rows of neatly dressed tables full of laughing people, cousins, friends, co-workers, the entire damn clan. We passed table 6, my aunt and uncle. Table 8, Brandon's college buddies. We didn't stop till we hit the far back corner, behind a row of tall potted plants practically against the wall. Table 14, right next to the swinging kitchen doors. The whoosh of trays, the clink of dishes, waitstaff squeezing by every 5 seconds. Owen didn't notice. He was still staring at the chandelier. "I bet it opens up and shoots light beams," he whispered. I forced a smile. "Maybe after cake." I pulled out his chair. The cushion slid a little from the slick floor, and the kid almost toppled backward. I caught him just in time. We sat. I scanned the room again. Table after table of smiling faces and champagne glasses. Everyone lit up in warm light. Us? We were practically in the shadows. A couple we didn't know joined us. Late 30s maybe, probably Claire's side. They gave a polite smile, didn't bother introducing themselves. Then I saw Diane. She floated past table 9 with a wine glass in hand, leaned over someone's shoulder, and giggled loud enough to turn heads. Her dress was a pale lavender thing with rhinestones along the sleeves. She looked like she was auditioning for a Real Housewives reunion. She didn't even glance our way. Not once. Instead, she swept over to Claire, kissed her cheek, and said loud enough for me to hear across the room, "My new daughter looks absolutely perfect." Claire giggled and leaned into her like they were sorority sisters. Owen tugged my sleeve. "Is Grandma gonna sit with us?" I cleared my throat. "No, bud. She's got a spot up front." He nodded slowly, trying to make sense of it. The string quartet wrapped up. A woman in a headset walked to the mic, announced the wedding party. Everyone clapped. The bridesmaids filed in, followed by the groomsmen. Brandon and Claire entered last, smiling, holding hands like a magazine cover. They took their seats at the head table. Bright spotlight on them, roses piled like clouds. We were barely visible behind a ficus tree. Dinner started. Servers came out in waves. Perfectly plated fish, some kind of risotto, asparagus twisted into a swirl. We got the same food as everyone else, sure, but ours was lukewarm by the time it reached table 14. Didn't matter to Owen. He was still in awe. He whispered about the music, the lights, how cool the servers looked with towels on their arms. And for a second, I let myself breathe. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad. Maybe we'd sit here, eat, clap politely, get through it. Then the lights dimmed a little, and the MC said, "We're ready to begin the toasts." I sat up straighter. Owen clapped. I glanced at the head table. Claire stood up, smoothed her dress, and took the mic. I told myself it would be harmless. Just sweet little stories, light jokes, nothing personal. I should have known better. Claire stood at the head table, mic in one hand, champagne glass in the other. She gave a quick glance toward the sound booth like she was waiting on her cue. The lights softened just a little more. She smiled like she'd been waiting her whole life to play this role. The room went quiet. That kind of fake silence where people are still half laughing from the last toast and reaching for their wine, but ready to clap on command. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she began, her voice sweet and polished like she'd been coached. "Seriously, from the bottom of my heart. It means the world that you're all here to celebrate this new chapter with Brandon and me. A few scattered claps, mostly from her side. Her parents looked proud enough to combust. She kept going, soft and steady. She talked about meeting Brandon, how they crossed paths at the exact right time, how God has a plan for every love story. I glanced at Owen, who was halfway through his bread roll and swaying gently in his chair like he was hearing a lullaby. I leaned back a little. Maybe I'd been too tense. Maybe this really would just be harmless wedding talk. Then Claire's tone shifted, just enough to feel it. "And of course," she said, pausing like a comedian about to drop a punchline, "I have to thank my future brother-in-law, Nathan." My stomach clenched instantly. The name hit harder than it should have. She didn't call me Nate. Nobody in that room did. Only people trying to sound formal used Nathan. I looked at her. She was smiling now, but it wasn't the warm kind. It was controlled, calculated. I knew that smile. I'd seen it on Diane's face too many times. "He's really shown us all how strong single fathers can be, doing it all alone," she said, pausing just long enough to make the next words hit harder, after being clearly passed over by anyone else willing to stick around. Laughter. Immediate, big, sharp, loud laughter. Not the quiet, polite kind either. Real amusement. A few people even clapped. Wine glasses clinked around the room. Someone near the head table let out a whistle. I didn't move. I didn't laugh. I didn't even blink. Owen turned to me, confused. He tugged on my blazer sleeve. "Why did she say that?" he asked, voice low, like he wasn't sure if he'd done something wrong. I couldn't answer. My mouth was dry. My chest tightened. Then, from the center of the room, Diane's voice rang out, too loud, too rehearsed. "Well, at least he finally dressed up," she said, waving her wine glass in a slow circle. "Doesn't look like he just rolled out of a shift at the auto shop." That got another round of laughter. Not as loud as before, but enough. The kind that stung more because it came in waves. People chuckled like it was fine, like it was deserved. I stared down at the tablecloth. It was off-white with a faint pattern of vines. There was a little smear of butter near my plate. I couldn't stop looking at it. Owen was still staring at me. His shoulders were tight, his lips pressed together like he was holding back a question he didn't know how to ask. I looked up and scanned the room. Nobody else was looking at us. Everyone had gone back to their meals, to their wine, to their casual laughter. Claire handed the mic off to someone else. I didn't catch who. She sat down like nothing happened. Like what she said was totally normal. Just a clever, edgy toast with a little punch. I could feel heat rising in my neck, my ears, my chest. Not just embarrassment. Something heavier. Shame, maybe. Rage mixed with helplessness. That feeling when you know there's nothing you can say that'll make anyone care. Owen reached for his water and missed. The glass tipped, splashed a little onto the table. Not much, but enough for him to flinch. "Sorry," he mumbled. I shook my head. "It's okay, bud." He looked back at the chandelier like he needed something bright to focus on. I sat there, still, while people started clapping again for whoever spoke next. Diane's laugh drifted over once more, thinner this time, like she was trying too hard. I saw her tilt her head back and swirl her glass like she was royalty. I knew exactly what this was. It wasn't just a joke. It was Diane's approval wrapped in a dig. Her green light to everyone else that I was still the family's designated failure. And Claire? She was just putting a bow on it. I felt it all in my jaw, in my fists under the table. I'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head over the years. Standing up, calling them out, flipping a table, whatever. But when it really hit, all I did was sit there, like I was pinned to the damn chair. More clinking. More forks scraping plates. Someone asked for more wine. Life went on like nothing had happened. But something had. I could feel it in my skin. Owen didn't touch his food again. The waitress came by to clear plates and smiled without looking at us. Probably didn't hear the speech. Probably didn't know she was scraping shame off the edge of the table. Across the room, Diane leaned toward Claire and said something else that made her laugh. small and smug, the kind of laugh people let out when they know they've won. I tried to swallow. Couldn't. Couldn't breathe right. Couldn't move. Couldn't believe this was real. I scanned the room. Not one person looked at me. My uncle Alan, Diane's older brother, sat with his wife at table 6, just 20 feet away. He dabbed the corner of his mouth with a napkin, folded it neatly, and went right back to chewing, like nothing had happened. My cousin Jessa was across from him, face lit up from her phone, scrolling, maybe texting her sister about what Claire said, maybe already turning it into gossip. And my grandfather, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, who once told me, "You don't let people kick you down just because they're louder," stared straight at his plate like the mashed potatoes had something important to say. He didn't lift his head, not once. Owen hadn't touched his fork in 5 minutes. His hands were folded in his lap. His eyes were on the empty glass in front of him, and his mouth was a straight, pale line. No more spaceship jokes. No more whispering about lights or music. Just silence. That's what cracked me. I pushed my chair back. It scraped loud against the floor, loud enough for a few heads to turn, but not enough for anyone to stop chewing or drinking. I didn't make a scene, didn't curse, didn't raise my voice. I just stood, reached for Owen's hand, and started to lean in so I could whisper, "Let's go." But before I could say a word, I heard it. The screech of another chair behind me. Brandon. He stood. Slow. Deliberate. The sound of his chair dragging over the polished floor seemed louder than the whole damn room. He wasn't looking at Claire, wasn't looking at Diane. He was staring dead at me. His jaw was locked, eyes sharp, shoulders squared. He looked furious. I froze. Owen looked up at him too, unsure. His little fingers curled around mine tighter. Everyone noticed then. The hum of the room dimmed, like the air dropped 5 degrees. The waiter who was walking by with a tray of flutes actually stopped mid-step. Brandon didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me, like he was trying to figure something out in real time. Then he turned slowly, faced the crowd, and scanned the room. And he grabbed the mic right out of Claire's hand. Didn't ask. Didn't explain. Just took it. Claire looked stunned. Her mouth opened slightly like she was about to say something. Maybe protest, maybe ask what he was doing, but no sound came out. Diane's face twisted. You could see the color shift under her makeup. She looked like she just bit into a lemon. Brandon raised the mic. The room went dead silent. He looked out at the crowd, rows of people still holding champagne flutes halfway to their mouths. "I'm not letting that slide," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't have to be. Every single person was listening. "That wasn't a joke," he said, his eyes locked on the tables in front of him. "That was cruelty." Claire was frozen in her chair, hands in her lap. The smile she had earlier was gone. Her face was blank. Diane shifted in her seat, already shaking her head. Brandon kept going. Nathan raised his son by himself, worked 2 jobs at a time to make sure Owen never went without. He stood on his own, while most of you sat in judgment, and did nothing to help. He turned slightly, now looking at table 6, at Alan, at Grandpa. He worked jobs nobody wanted. He showed up when no one else did. And he brought his kid here today with respect. Something a few of you clearly forgot how to show. A murmur broke out near the middle tables. Quiet shock. No one expected it. Then he looked at Claire. "You mocked the only decent person in this room who didn't ask for attention, who didn't ask for anything, and you did it to get a laugh." Someone near the bar gasped. One of the bridesmaids dropped her napkin. Claire blinked, tried to speak. Just one word. "Brandon." But he turned his back to her. Didn't give her a chance. He looked at the room again. Mic still raised. "If this is what family is," he said, voice firm and steady, "then I don't want it." And then he walked. Not fast, not storming out. Just calm, straight down the center aisle between tables, through the stunned faces, toward the exit. Didn't even take his tux jacket. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look back. Claire stayed in her chair, hands folded tight, mic still in front of her like she didn't know whether to drop it or keep pretending the night could be salvaged. Diane looked furious now, her face red, mouth open like she was about to spit nails. Owen was staring after Brandon like he just watched someone defuse a bomb. I didn't know what the hell to do. The room was frozen. Nobody spoke, nobody clapped, nobody even stood up. Just that silence again. Real this time. Not the fake wedding kind. I reached for Owen's blazer and gently pulled it straight at the shoulders. He looked up at me, still no smile, just wide eyes. I didn't sit back down. Nobody moved. Owen was still watching the door Brandon had walked through, and I was still standing next to him, hand on his shoulder, waiting for the next blow to come from somewhere. But it didn't. Not right away. The entire room sat in stunned, dead silence, like the party had crashed straight into a brick wall. Claire still had the mic in her hand. Her knuckles were white around the handle. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there like someone forgot to program her next move. The DJ had his hand near the laptop, like he wasn't sure whether to play a slow song or unplug the whole system and sneak out the back. Then Diane stood. She stood fast, like she wanted to beat someone to the punch, and the second she opened her mouth, her voice was sharp enough to slice through the air. "Brandon!" she yelled, as if he might still be in the room. "Get back here!" People flinched. That voice was pure Diane, piercing, polished, and pissed. But Brandon didn't come back. The door at the end of the hall stayed shut. She looked around the room, huffing, adjusting the strap on her dress like that would fix the moment. "Well," she said, glancing at Claire like they'd rehearsed some kind of save. "Clearly he's upset. But this is not the time for drama." Nobody clapped. Nobody backed her up. She waited half a beat, then turned toward me. And that's when she locked eyes with Owen. Her face twitched like she forgot he was even here. "Honestly," she said, her voice still raised, "you embarrassed her, Nathan. You always ruin things." That did it. Not the joke. Not the crowd laughing. Not the decades of being ignored and pushed out and blamed for everything. That. Owen flinched when she said it. And I saw something in him crack, like he realized all at once that this wasn't just about me. It was about him, too. I stepped in front of his chair. "You don't get to spin this," I said, loud enough for everyone at the surrounding tables to hear. Diane's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" "No," I said. "You don't get to pretend like you didn't love every second of what she said." Claire still hadn't moved, still clutching that mic like she was waiting for her next line. "You didn't stop her," I said. "You laughed. You made it worse. And the rest of them," I turned, looked across the tables, "you all just sat there." No one made eye contact. Even the ones who looked like they agreed with Brandon. Nobody spoke. Just downcast eyes and shifting in their chairs. I looked back at Diane. Her mouth was tight. Her hands were clenched now, the wine glass shaking slightly in her grip. "You think I ruined things?" I said. "You cut me out of this family years ago. All I did was show up. All I did was bring my kid to his uncle's wedding and sit at the table you stuffed in the shadows. You made damn sure we were invisible." Diane tried to speak again, but I wasn't finished. "You stood there and let Claire treat me like garbage in front of my son. You let her joke about me being left behind, like Owen's some kind of accident you all have to tolerate. And then you have the nerve to say I ruined this?" Claire finally moved. Just slightly, like her brain caught up to her body and realized the mic was still in her hand. "I didn't mean it like that," she said, eyes wide. It was supposed to be funny." I looked at her. Really looked. She was still in that perfect lace dress, makeup flawless, hair pinned like a magazine cover. But none of that helped her now. Her voice was hollow. Her smile, the one she gave Owen earlier, was gone. "You don't get to joke about people you don't know," I said. "You don't get to stand up there and humiliate someone who already knows he's not wanted, not just for laughs." She opened her mouth again, then closed it. She didn't know what to say, and for once, she didn't try to fake it. I turned to Owen. He was looking up at me, eyes wide, waiting for a signal. A move. Something. I nodded. "Come on, bud. We're done here." But before we could step away, someone stood. An older man near the center. My grandfather. His chair scraped slowly. He stood with some effort, adjusting his belt, smoothing the front of his jacket. His hands were shaking just enough to notice. He didn't say anything. Just stood. His eyes found mine. And for half a second, I thought maybe he was about to say something supportive. Something final. Maybe an apology. But he just gave me a small nod. Almost too small to be real. And then sat back down. Maybe that was all he had in him. Maybe that was more than I should have expected. Either way, it was enough. Not good, not clean, but enough. I turned toward the exit. Owen followed, his little dress shoes tapping softly against the floor. The noise in the room stayed low, not even whispers now, just stunned silence and the clink of a wine glass here and there. No music, no applause, no one calling us back. We passed by table 6. My uncle still wouldn't look at me. We passed Claire's bridesmaids. One of them looked like she was about to cry. Diane stayed standing, still frozen, still furious, but her voice didn't come again. That voice, the one that used to fill every room, control every moment, it didn't work anymore. We reached the door. Owen looked up at me. I opened it for him. We walked out. We stepped through the main doors, and the second they shut behind us, the air felt different, heavier somehow. The reception hall's fake warmth vanished, like someone had pulled the plug on the illusion the whole damn party had been running on. But we didn't leave yet. I stopped right outside the building. Owen stood beside me, looking back through the glass like he was still waiting for something. Maybe Brandon, maybe a reason to understand any of what just happened. He didn't ask. He just stood still. Inside, through the tall windows, the scene was frozen. Nobody had moved. The DJ still hadn't played music. The cake sat untouched on its fancy little platform. Waiters hovered like they didn't know whether to start clearing tables or walk out themselves. Every guest sat stiff, faces blank or tilted just enough to avoid meeting someone's eye. You could almost hear the buzzing of the vents from outside. Claire was still at the head table, stiff-backed, hands resting on her lap like a student who just got caught cheating in front of the whole class. Her cheeks were pale. She didn't even blink. Her bridesmaids were scattered in their matching dresses, not talking, not fixing each other's makeup or pulling phones for selfies, just staring down, trying to disappear into the floor. Diane finally stood again. She yanked her shawl tighter around her shoulders like she was cold, or like she needed something to wrap herself in now that her golden girl plan had shattered. "Brandon is ungrateful," she said loudly, her voice breaking through the dead room. "After everything we've done for him, this is how he repays us?" A few people turned her way, but not with sympathy. Just blank looks. No one agreed. No one nodded. No one even pretended to back her up. She looked around like she was waiting for applause or a supportive chuckle. Nothing. Then her eyes locked on me through the glass. She pointed. "This is your fault, Nathan. You embarrassed her. You always ruin things." That voice, the one I'd grown up with, the one that could fill a house and crush your spine in a single sentence, didn't carry like it used to. The room didn't react. Nobody followed her lead. No one clapped. No one spoke up in defense of Claire, not even her own family. They just stared at the tablecloths or picked at their food like they wished they were anywhere else. And just like that, Diane's power broke. I watched her shoulders drop. The mask slipped. For a second, she just looked old. Not polished, not sharp, not the woman who ruled every family function with a glass of wine and a fake smile. Just a woman who lost control of the room and didn't know how to get it back. I didn't say anything. Not to her. Not to anyone. I looked down at Owen. His face was calm, but his voice came out small. "Can we go?" I nodded. Yeah, bud, let's go home. He didn't need to be told twice. We turned away from the glass and walked toward the car. My rented Blazer felt heavy on my shoulders, like it had absorbed the weight of everything that had happened inside. The air was cool. Somewhere behind us, the wind picked up through the trees along the driveway, rustling the vineyard leaves like the world was moving forward, whether they were ready or not. Owen climbed into the back seat and buckled himself in without a word. I slid into the driver's seat, adjusted the mirror, and looked at us both for a second. His clip-on tie was a little crooked. My collar was wrinkled from where I'd sweated through it earlier. I started the engine. We pulled away from that building like we were driving out of a fire that hadn't fully burned itself down yet. Inside the car, Owen finally spoke. Uncle Brandon was mad. Yeah, I said, keeping my eyes on the road. He was. He looked out the window, then turned back to me. But not at us. No, I said, not at us. Silence settled in again. But it wasn't awkward. It was clean. Like the kind of silence that comes after you shut a door for good. We drove past the hills and the parked cars and the big white tent still lit up like nothing had gone wrong. But we knew better. That tent, that building, it didn't mean anything now. It was a stage, and the whole show had collapsed mid-performance. Back at the motel, I let Owen take the first shower. While he was in there, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the TV, even though it wasn't on. My hands were still clenched without me noticing. I had to shake them out like I'd just finished a fight. Owen came out wrapped in a towel, hair damp, pajamas already halfway on. He crawled onto the other bed and pulled the covers over himself like he'd done it 1,000 times before. I got up, washed my face, changed out of the dress shirt, and slid into the bed beside him. I didn't bother turning off the light. He rolled over to face me. Will we still see Uncle Brandon again? I looked at him. Yeah, I said. I think we will. He didn't ask anything else. He closed his eyes and was out in less than a minute. I lay there awake for a while, staring at the ceiling. Not angry, not sad, just awake. And I kept thinking one thing, over and over. They all saw it. Every single person in that room saw who Diane really was, who Claire was, who I was. And for the first time, they didn't laugh it off. They didn't pretend it was fine. They didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They didn't come running, but they saw it. And that was more than I'd ever gotten from them. I woke up before the alarm, didn't even check the time, just stared at the ceiling while the motel AC unit buzzed behind my head like it was trying to drown out my thoughts. Owen was still out cold, curled on his side, breathing soft. His tie was still on the nightstand, his little clip-on. I looked at it for a long time, like it was some kind of evidence. I picked up my phone. 19 missed calls. One from Diane. The rest were all unknown numbers or relatives I hadn't heard from in years. A few left voicemails, but I didn't listen. I didn't need to hear their half-assed excuses or, "You know she didn't mean it" speeches. There were a few texts, too. Most from people I barely knew. One said, "Hey, I just wanted to say, that was long overdue. You handled it well." Another one had just one sentence. "He spoke for all of us." Then I saw the link. Someone sent me a video. No subject line, no message. Just the link. It opened to a TikTok. Some guest at the reception, probably from Claire's side, had recorded Brandon's speech on their phone. You could see it clear as day. Brandon standing there in his tux, taking the mic from Claire, her frozen face, Diane's reaction, all of it. At the bottom of the screen, groom calls out his own family at wedding. Wait for it. I didn't want to watch it, but I did. Watch the whole 2-minute clip, right there in the motel room, with the light barely breaking through the curtains and Owen still breathing steady beside me. 40,000 views. That's what it had overnight. By lunchtime, it hit 80. By the time I got back home, it passed 100,000. I didn't repost it, didn't comment, didn't like it, but I read the replies. Finally, someone said it. That man is a hero. To the single dads out there, respect. This just healed something in me. Groom of the year. Damn, I cried. Who raised that guy? Not his mom, clearly. That one made me stop. I read it twice. I didn't smile. Didn't cry either. I just stared at the screen and felt something shift. Not in a big dramatic way. Just this quiet loosening in my chest. Like a knot had started to come undone, and I hadn't even realized how tight it had gotten. We stopped at a diner on the drive home. Sat in a corner booth, both of us still wearing yesterday's clothes. The waitress didn't ask questions. She brought Owen a stack of pancakes and gave me extra coffee without saying a word. I watched him eat while the sun came through the blinds, and I realized how steady he looked, like he'd already filed the whole thing away under lessons learned, and was just waiting for the next chapter to start. When we got home, I dropped our overnight bag by the door and sat on the couch for what felt like hours. Didn't turn on the TV, didn't answer the phone when it rang again. Just sat with the weight of what had happened and let it settle. Owen disappeared into his room. He didn't say much. He was quiet all day, but not in a scared or upset kind of way. Just thoughtful. That night, while I was rinsing dishes in the sink, he came back out with a piece of paper and held it up like it was nothing special. "Look," he said. I dried my hands, turned around. It was a drawing. 3 stick figures, 1 tall, 1 medium, 1 small. The tall one had a little box in front of his face, a microphone drawn in blue crayon. The small one had a big smile. The middle one had spiky hair, like the way he draws me when we play superheroes. I didn't even have to ask. "This is you, this is me, and that's Uncle Brandon," he said, when he said the thing. I looked at it for a second longer than I meant to. Then I walked over to the fridge, grabbed the closest magnet, and stuck it right in the center. Owen smiled and walked back to his room without another word. And I stood there, staring at that damn drawing. It didn't make the sting go away. It didn't fix what Diane said. It didn't erase the years of being kept at arm's length, the birthdays missed, the holidays we weren't invited to. But it was something. Not applause, not forgiveness, but something real. The kind of real that doesn't need a stage or a crowd. Later that night, when Owen was asleep and the house finally quiet, I walked into the kitchen and looked at the fridge again. The drawing was still there, a little wrinkled at the edges from his small hands. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a guest in my own life. I wasn't standing outside anymore, hoping someone would let me in. I was already home. The video kept climbing. 100,000, then 2. People from across the country were sharing it. Parenting blogs, mental health accounts, even a teacher from Wisconsin who stitched the clip and said, "This is what accountability looks like." And still, Claire tried to spin it. She posted a photo the next day of her holding a coffee mug with the word grace on it. Caption read, "Sometimes people say things they regret. We learn, we grow, we forgive." Comments were locked by the afternoon. Then a week later, she gave it another shot, went live on Instagram, sitting on her spotless couch, talking softly like a yoga instructor, telling people the whole thing was a misunderstanding, that Brandon had overreacted in the moment, and that weddings are emotional for everyone. No one bought it, not even her own bridesmaids. By the second week, all the photos of her and Brandon were gone. Engagement post deleted, registry link dead. Even the hashtag, #, Brandon and Claire ever after, stopped pulling up anything but memes. They didn't release a statement, no carefully worded apology, no public closure, just silence, a digital erase. Then Diane called. Her name popped up on my screen while I was unloading boxes at the warehouse loading dock. For half a second I almost didn't pick up, but I did. She skipped hello. "Do you realize how bad you made me look?" Her voice was hard, clipped. No trace of sadness. No regret. "You let that happen," she went on. "You stood there and said nothing. You let her get humiliated in front of everyone. Do you think that's something a good brother does?" I didn't yell. Didn't match her energy. Just held the phone to my ear and waited for her to run out of steam. When she finally stopped, I said, "I'm not your punching bag anymore." Then I hung up. No speech, no follow-up, just ended it. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty afterward, not even a flicker of that usual weight. It felt like taking off a jacket I didn't realize was 3 sizes too small. My life didn't magically change after that. Still had the same bills, same shifts. Still worked nights at the warehouse, and filled my days with delivery runs in my beat-up Toyota. Still lived paycheck to paycheck. Still stacked coupons for Owen's school supplies. But something shifted in the way I stood, the way I carried myself around people who used to look down on me. And Owen noticed. Not just that day, but in the weeks after. He started asking different kinds of questions. Braver ones. Why did Grandma never come to my birthday? Why does Uncle Brandon say sorry when no one else does? Why don't more grown-ups stop mean people? I didn't have clean answers, but I gave him honest ones. And instead of shrinking or looking scared, he listened. He asked more. He sat with the discomfort and didn't try to squirm away from it. One afternoon he came home from school with his hair messy and his shirt a little dirty. I thought he'd gotten in trouble. Turned out a kid in his class was picking on a girl for wearing the same shoes every day. Owen stood up, told him to stop, loud enough the teacher heard. When I asked what made him do it, he just shrugged. Like Uncle Brandon did, he said, like it was obvious. I turned away and wiped my face before he could see. That night I drove him to a late dentist appointment, and while he was inside, I checked my phone. There was a text from a number I didn't recognize at first. Let's catch up soon. I owe you more than a speech. I stared at it, then realized it was Brandon. I typed back, "What do you mean?" It took a minute before he responded. "There's stuff you don't know, stuff you deserve to know." I didn't press, didn't send a wall of questions or demand an explanation. Brandon wasn't the heart on his sleeve type. We didn't grow up talking about feelings or laying our stuff out on the table. We grew up under Diane, where silence was safety and emotions were something you hid or got punished for. So when he said he owed me more, I believed him. It wasn't a warning, wasn't some veiled threat. It felt different. It felt like the first tap against a wall that had been up since we were kids. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the screen, sitting in that parked car, listening to Owen laugh through the dentist's office window while watching cartoons in the waiting room. I figured Brandon would come by when he was ready. I didn't need a parade or a formal apology, but the wall had cracked, and that was enough for now. The next couple weeks came and went without a word from Claire. No texts, no calls, no apology wrapped in a fake smile. Not even one of those vague, tone-policing messages she liked to send when she needed to clear her name without taking blame. Nothing. Same with her family. Her sister, her cousins, her parents, all of them ghosted like someone shut off a faucet. Cold silence. But the truth? That silence was better than any noise they ever made. For once, my phone wasn't vibrating with backhanded invitations or fake holiday greetings from people who didn't want us around unless there was a photo op. For once, it was just quiet. And in that quiet, things started to breathe. One morning, I stepped out onto the porch to grab the mail. It was early, cool air rolling in from the west, the sky still smudged with morning clouds. I opened the box and found the usual: water bill, supermarket flyer, a letter from Owen's school, and one small envelope. No name, no return address, just cream cardstock with nothing but my street number on it. Looked like something you'd get with a gift basket. Inside was a single card. Thick paper, heavy stock. No design, no greeting. Just 4 words written in blue ink, all caps, "To the Wolf." No signature. I stood there holding it for maybe a full minute, envelope flapping in the wind. Didn't need to guess. Didn't need to ask around or try to figure it out. It was Brandon. His words from the wedding. I didn't need proof. I slid the card into my jacket pocket and went inside. Later that week, Owen's school held their end-of-semester assembly. One of those midday things where folding chairs squeak and someone's little sister cries in the background. I was sitting in the back, sipping coffee from a paper cup, trying to look like I wasn't nervous even though I was. They called his name for most thoughtful student. He walked up slow but sure, brown dress shoes scuffed at the toes, the same clip-on tie from the wedding still holding strong around his collar. The principal handed him a certificate, then leaned down to ask if he wanted to say anything. Most kids would have shaken their heads and bolted. Owen took the mic, just a few words. Nothing dramatic, nothing shaky. "My dad's the strongest guy I know." That was it. No big speech, no pause for effect. Just said it and walked off the stage like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I clapped the loudest. Not out of pride, not even out of emotion. I clapped because it was true, and because that moment right there, that sentence, had more power than anything Diane ever put in a Christmas letter. That night, after dinner and dishes and homework and a quick Nerf war in the living room, I was putting Owen to bed when I saw the screen light up on my phone. Brandon. Second time he'd called since that night. I didn't pick up. Not because I was ignoring him, but because Owen was already halfway through telling me about a new robot he saw in a book at school, and I wasn't about to cut him off for anyone, not even for my brother. After Owen fell asleep, I listened to the voicemail. Brandon's voice was calm, lower than usual, a little nervous. "Let's meet this weekend," he said. "I'll bring someone with me. He's been waiting a long time." That's all. I played it twice, sat there on the couch, lights off, just the fridge humming in the kitchen, and Owen's soft breathing from down the hall. I knew what he meant. Part of me didn't want to hope. I'd kept that door sealed for so long it didn't even feel like a door anymore. More like a wall. A solid one. One I'd painted over, walked past, tried to forget existed. But the second time I heard the message, I felt it. That small crack again. That same shift in my chest. Not wide open yet. Not even close. But there. 6 months later, I was still tired. Still clocking night shifts at the warehouse, still juggling delivery apps during the day, still making peanut butter toast for Owen every morning because he swore eggs made him gag. But something was different. I didn't flinch anymore when someone brought up my family. Didn't lower my eyes when I passed a neighbor who remembered Diane's voice more than my name. I didn't explain myself at school events or over the phone to people who used to only call me out of obligation. I didn't carry shame anymore. Owen was different too. He asked sharper questions now, held his shoulders higher. He looked people in the eye, even adults, even ones who didn't deserve it. He started sticking up for kids who got ignored in class, even when it meant getting called out himself. And every time he did, he'd come home, drop his backpack, and say, "It's what Uncle Brandon would have done." Like it was a rule now, like it was in our blood. Last night, brushing our teeth, he asked, "Dad, are you still mad about that wedding?" I spat, wiped my mouth, then looked at him in the mirror. "No," I said. "Why?" He shrugged. "Because I think we won. You and me." I didn't say anything back, just nodded. Because he was right. We didn't shout. We didn't beg. We didn't stay behind trying to fix what was already broken. We just stood up, walked out, and someone none of them saw coming, made the whole room look at what they'd become. This morning I was halfway through folding a pile of laundry when there was a knock at the door. Cartoons were blaring in the background. Owen was face down on the rug with a juice box, kicking his feet in the air like it was any normal Saturday. I opened the door. It was Brandon. He looked different, lighter but serious, like someone who'd finally stopped dragging around other people's expectations. He didn't smile, didn't fidget, just stood there for a second, then said, "He's here." I didn't even have to ask who. There was a shadow behind him. Then a man stepped forward. Gray beard, broad shoulders, heavy eyes that looked like mine. He wasn't wearing anything special, just jeans and a dark flannel, but he didn't look smaller than I remembered. If anything, he looked like someone who'd aged in a hurry but still held every word he'd never said. I hadn't seen him since I was 12. He opened his mouth, and his voice was rough but steady. "I didn't walk away," he said. "I was pushed out, but I should have found a way back." I didn't speak. My jaw tightened, hands flexed at my sides. He waited, didn't fill the silence, didn't sell me a story. So I stepped aside and let him in. We sat at the table, the same one Owen and I used for homework and grilled cheese nights. My father didn't beg, didn't list his regrets or pretend he knew who I'd become. He just looked me straight in the eye and said, "You did better than I ever did. I'm proud of that." The words didn't land with a big emotional punch. There were no tears, no swelling background music. They just sank in. Owen peeked into the room, quiet, curious. I waved him over. "This is your grandpa," I said. "My dad." He came closer, eyes wide, still holding his juice box. My father bent down slowly, rested his hand on one knee, and held out the other. Owen didn't hesitate. He shook his hand, then grinned like he'd just met a superhero. We didn't cry. We didn't hug. But something cracked open in that room, something older than Brandon's speech and deeper than Diane's silence. Something I hadn't known was still locked up inside me. And I knew in that moment that whatever came next would be on our terms. No pretending. No playing nice just to stay in the room. I didn't need anyone's approval. I didn't need them to love me. I just needed to stop giving them the power to hurt me. And I did. Do you think Brandon waited too long to stand up for his brother? Share your answer in the comments. If this story hit you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you thought. Want to hear what comes next? Tap the box on the right.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.